when you find yourself revisiting the same thing over and over and over again, it's actually an invitation to grow. So today we're continuing our series on shadow work, and today we're talking about the patterns and loops. So these things, again, we've been tying this back to the 9 levels of consciousness, because we did mention the shadow work in the 9 levels of consciousness. And again, this is just the way I do shadow work. You could do it totally different. You don't have to do it this way. This is just me sharing how I have found has been effective for me. Okay, so the patterns and loops are happening at the individual automatic mind level of the levels of consciousness, which is level number 6. And so the thing that is interesting about the patterns and loops, and again, in the beliefs, we were talking about the reason why it's dangerous to let those old beliefs sit there without addressing them is that unintentionally we find ourselves in these loops, right? And so we introduced the concept of the Pygmalion effect, which I've actually talked about previously, but it's been a little while. And the Pygmalion effect is a self-fulfilling prophecy is essentially what it is. And this can work for you or it can work against you. Because again, polarity is up to you, right? So you get to choose your polarity. But if you are allowing negative beliefs to continue to hang out in your energetic space, those loops are not going to be working on your behalf. They're going to be working against you, and unfortunately manifesting things for you that are the opposite thing of what you want. So for example, let's say you've noticed that you have a pattern where the people in your life tend to take advantage of you. Okay, so you're the one who is always striving to maintain the relationships. You're the one who's always breaking your back to make sure that the other person is okay. But when you are there and you need somebody, your people are not showing up for you. Okay, and that could be occurring, and you might see the same loop and it manifests differently each time, but it's always some variation of that. There's this underlying theme of you doing all the work and then you not being supported, and that hurts over time, right? That hurts, but it could be because there's a negative belief that you may be harboring. And again, I keep giving this example because really this is literally what happens to us. We form these beliefs during our formative years. So like you're on the playground, someone doesn't want to play with you, so you're like, nobody likes me. Okay, so that's your belief. Nobody actually likes me, which means that you feel like you need to earn it, right? You need to earn someone's friendship. You need to make yourself valuable to them so that they'll keep you, right? And so you bend over backwards doing everything for them. And there's always going to be people out there who haven't done their own shadow work. Again, like, we'll extend grace. I'm not saying that they're necessarily bad people. They just need to do their own series of work, right? So that they can have fulfilling, mutually beneficial relationships, right? But there's always going to be people who are willing to take advantage of you if you let them. There's always going to be people who will be like that. And so you get to decide what your own worth is. But if you feel like you have no value, and if you are willing to give yourself away for nothing, people are going to take it and they'll take advantage of it, and they will view you as being cheap, right? Because like when you think about it, there was actually a study that was done. I think it was Payless Shoe Source, if I'm remembering correctly, who did this. And of course, they're known for having inexpensive shoes, right? Which, people think of as cheap, right? But they ended up doing, putting this like very upscale, posh store in this very posh mall, and they had a bunch of social media influencers come, and nobody knew who was underwriting it. And they had the exact same shoes that they do in their regular store. And these people came and they were raving, oh, it's amazing. And of course the shoes are costing hundreds and hundreds of dollars, because they're proving a point here. But the point was they're the exact same shoe, right? And so it comes down to perspective, right? Perspective is reality. If I believe something has value, it has value. And this is why oh gosh, I can't wait to do that series. I have of course, I love a good diagram. I have a diagram on tips for manifesting, and so the second tip is about perspective and scale. The original version of that, it didn't make it into the final one, is basically talking about the fact that value is arbitrary. But since it's not always about value, sometimes it's about scale, I had to change that. But the reality is value is arbitrary, right? You think about art pieces, you know, and who decides whether a piece sells for like $10 at Goodwill or $50 million, you know, at Sotheby's, right? Who decides that? Who decides what is good art? Like, you know, there is so much subjective view in all of it. And once you realize that, and you can change your perspective about things, because again, when it comes to manifesting, this is just a teeny little tip into what this is about. If you are convinced that the thing you're trying to manifest is a big deal, then you are actively working against manifesting it in your life, because you are creating the resistance because you think it is bigger, so it's harder to achieve, so it's harder to manifest, right? So you're inadvertently pushing away the very thing you want to be drawing in. But I digress. Not that I feel passionate about this. So coming back to the patterns and loops, what ends up happening when you find those beliefs, they tend to be cyclical. So you're seeing them show up in multiple ways. And so what happens is once you see the belief, you can usually find the pattern and see the different ways that it has showed up in your life. And then after that is when you get to move on to the fun part of shadow work, which is the realignment and integration. And that is what we are going to talk about next. So I hope you'll come back. And in the meantime, have a good day.